Not every HVAC career starts in a classroom. Some start on rooftops, some start running flex duct in attics, and some take a detour through the Air Force before landing back in the trade. Today's guest, Cameron Ferguson, has lived all that. Now he's deep into high-performance heat pump design, LIDAR-driven workflows, and building science. And he's built a whole philosophy around it that he calls the thermal Stoic. We're going to unpack how he got there, what he's learned, and where he thinks the industry is headed next. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to the HVAC ADHD Vodcast. I'm here with Cameron Ferguson, the thermal Stoic. Did I hear that right? Is that what you call yourself online, the thermal Stoic? We're going to dig into where that came from, what Cameron's career path has been, and why he thinks LIDAR technology changed the game. Cameron, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your history in the industry?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So yeah, my name's Cameron Ferguson. I work for a small family-owned business, Independent Power out of Boulder, and I specialize in retrofit heat pump installations. And the design in particular is what I've just found myself getting deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. So I'm just so excited to be here today and just kind of dive in as deep as we can go on this.
I appreciate you jumping on. So tell me a little bit about how you got to this point. Where did you start at in the industry? What is this, your first company, your fifth company? Like, what's your path here to get to the point where you are now?
Probably like yours, Jeremy. It wasn't very linear for me, at least. And I was learning as I was going, literally in the field. I didn't start with any formal training, classroom setting or anything like that. It's nice that I am a third generation HVAC guy. So I did have that wealth of knowledge coming down for me. Even from a kid, I remember going on rooftops, commercial buildings outside of LA and replacing filters with my dad. So if I had a day off of school, I was doing that. And I never really thought I was going to long-term be in this. I actually joined the Air Force fresh out of high school and was a firefighter. So completely different direction, but I ended up finding my way back after I got out. And, in high school, I did some install. I was more just a flex run guy. So I was running ductwork in attics, just kind of the cheap labor at the time. So that was kind of my first thing that I was doing. And I was like, I'd never want to do that again. So I kind of just thought I wasn't going to get into HVAC,
Right.
Like if that's what HVAC is, I don't want to do that at all. But, as you progress in life, you start gaining these life experiences. And I fortunately got hired on as a maintenance technician in my professional career. And then I started to go to some night classes and learning the basics. And then I progressed up to service technician. I became, a very much technical service technician where we had a lot of warranties at one company that I was at. And I was the combustion analysis guy, for better or worse, but I was doing a lot of that, trying to figure out what was wrong with the
folks know, you're in Colorado, just so they get a context of is that right? Yeah. You're in Colorado, so they have a context of what your market is. So yeah, this is pre-heat pump push in Colorado?
This is pre-heat pump push, absolutely pre.
Yeah.
So this was a 2015. Yeah, it was Furnace World. 2015 to 2020 was really, for me, just all furnace and air conditioners, really. I would come across some heat pumps in the field, but being a tech, it was a challenge to try to learn that for me, and I was interested in it. I was like, this is really cool. So in the Denver market, it's particularly Boulder and Boulder County is where I live and where I serve in my community for HVAC. But I joined up with a company where they were one of the original geothermal install contractors in Colorado. And I didn't do that on purpose. I just had a friend that was there and I was looking to make a change, and I did. So I was inundated with geothermal service work right away, right when I got there. And it was a small family-owned business. And so it was literally the owner teaching me everything that he knew. And it was his dad's company originally. So it was very organic, the way that I learned heat pumps. And so, what's actually pretty cool is that company was called Blue Valley, and that company, they had a designer, an actual new construction actual design guy who's probably been doing it for 30 years. And I always used to just whatever whatever opportunity I could take to go into his office and just kind of watch what he does and shadow him. And he was very gracious with his time. And he would teach me. He would teach me how to look at the floor plans and kind of describing Manual D as he was drawing it. And that was so valuable, at that time.
Absolutely. If he knew Manual D good enough to describe it while he's drawing it, that was super valuable. There is no doubt about that. You had a good learning there for sure.
Yeah. I didn't realize, I look back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, those were some of the most influential times for me understanding the importance of design work. But I just didn't really capture all of that. I was just learning as much as I could. And I just thought it was cool. Yep. And so, then I remember seeing I wasn't a salesperson yet, but I really had a way to connect with homeowners really easily. And it's just being me, just being laid back, and so I naturally became just a salesperson that way. And I was really interested in selling equipment and I just naturally started gravitating to air source heat pumps and because I was at Blue Valley and my homeowners wanted it. In Boulder County, it's definitely, there's a lot of companies out in this area that are all striving for a clean energy future. And I was just right at home. I felt it was just such a great place to start, great place to learn and learn a lot of ways to not design. And it was kind of, I think, what is it? The Dunning-Kruger effect where you know just a little bit, but you think you know too much. And so I was designing systems. If I look back at my designs a couple of years ago, oh my God, you don't know what you don't know, but it's kind of embarrassing when I look back. I'm sure that happens to you as well, Jeremy.
Oh, all the time. I'm always worried. If you value what you do and you're a learner and a grower, you're always going to be getting better and learning better ways to do it and, taking other people's feedback and stuff like that. So you're probably always going to look back at your past work and be like, man, why did we do it that way? What software did you start out in? We'll talk about the one you are in now, but when you say designing, were you designing in RightSoft or a Lead or what program were you guys using?
I was trying whatever I could get my hands on. So we were Ream dealers. And so they had Design Star, which is RightSoft mobile, just RightJ mobile. Oh, so I really cut my teeth with that, understanding block loads.
Me too.
Yeah. And so I thought I was deadly. I was like, I know so much more than everybody. Yep. But as we know with block loads, bad input, bad output situations. So, but it was still more than anybody else around me was doing. I mean, people just in the retrofit market, people are doing rule of thumb methods because that's what they learned. And I always thought there's just got to be a better way to make this more accurate, So Design Star, and then I purchased my own software. I used EDS for a while. Then I bumped into someone who recommended Amply to me, and I started paying for that as well. And I got to know Ed Smith and been listening to their podcast religiously, of course, and that's really been a major influence in where I'm at currently. And I kind of just joke to myself, I'm like the Colorado chapter of like the Amply podcast. I'm like a disciple of Amply. It's kind of that home performance thing. So yeah. And they're hooked up with Peter and those guys, which are some, Energy Circle and Peter Trost. And, that's a really, really good friend of mine. And there's a really, really great people to have mentor you in the home performance space. So I'm sure those guys are going to do great. My introduction to the LIDAR stuff was through Conduit Tech, like early on in their early stages of it. I talked to them quite a bit about things that I thought should go into it, and they were interviewing me and other professionals across the industry during that time. So I've never used Amply, but I've seen the demos of it when I was at the first heat pump summit. Ed sort of showed me some of the stuff, and it's it's different, but similar to Conduit Tech in a ton of different ways. It's the same underlying principles. So I think, that is a game changer. Conduit Tech and Amply was right behind them with that technology attached, with LIDAR attached to a load calculation. That line of thinking there really opened up a lot of opportunities for people to not have excuses to be doing load calculations anymore. And for guys that wanted a better and faster way to do it, it just made them say, man, I've been waiting for this forever. And then they jumped right into it and grabbed it and went to it. So that all being said, it also creates a little bit of age-old conversation about using thoughtful defaults versus actually doing discovery in the home and figuring out what the actual thermal values of the home are. I myself have two different lines of thinking on that.
myself, and it is like each methodology has its own place in the sales process. So like basically if you have a reactive customer that has a heat pump that's out, and I'll get your thought, I just want you to hear this and I'll get your thoughts on it in just a minute. So if you have a reactive customer and you have a heat pump that's out, or anything that's out, I don't care what it is, something that needs a load calculation, and that thing is not working, and you're in a situation where you're going to call somebody else. If this person doesn't do it, you're going to call the next guy. Then I think that if you can get good enough on the defaults, like we have such a variance and size selection between equipment as far as a ton and a half ton, that's a bunch of BTUs in between there. I think you can probably get close enough as long as you are a little bit diligent with the homeowner and make sure that they haven't done any major upgrades that they know of or anything like that. Like in a short time frame, get in and out of the house, get them a quote, and feel good about replacing their system. I think I haven't used I religiously do not use the defaults. I always do the discovery. So I don't know from that, if that's true or not. I haven't done the comparison, but that is what I would think. I think that they are not going to put out a product that they're putting millions of dollars into that would have something built into it that would lead you to a path where you're going to need to take something out that you put into the house. You know what I mean? So like, I think that that's probably going to be good enough. Now, that being said, I don't think that you're getting the juice for the squeeze out of the software by doing it that way. I think you're way better served if you are preemptively talking to having your customer service representatives or whoever talks to your customers, if it's your sales guys, whatever, whoever does the most communication with them. When we train shops up, it's mostly we talk about the CSRs because we hope that you have somebody sitting up front answering the phone. And that person, when they're setting up the service agreement, because most people are going out at least once a year. So most companies go out twice a year, but if you're worth anything, you're at least going out once a year and, getting the $79 or $100 from your customer and checking on their equipment in some way, shape or form, or at least making them think you did at a minimum and taking their money. I mean, at least. So some way, shape or form, this is one thing that I'm going to say out loud too. And a lot of people may already know this, but I know a lot of people don't, is most of the value in a HVAC company is based on the amount of service contracts that you have. There's almost equal value to revenue and service contracts. And when they do a valuation on a company, when it's getting sold, two pieces of it are evaluated independently. One is the revenue that it's bringing in, and the other one is how many customers did you retain via a maintenance agreement. And that is like there's numbers and multipliers and everything else put on that piece of it, just like there is the revenue. So all that being said, I'm saying all that to say, I think you probably want to have those agreements and go back out to your customer, and you should be contacting them at yearly or biannually at least, or biannually or yearly at least. So if you're doing that, then you can have your customers say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, today the service tech is going to come out, and when he does the cleaning check, he's going to look at your house a little more thoroughly. He's going to get in some places we don't normally get in. He's going to try to understand how your house is reacting with your system, or how it's acting with your system, or how your house is serving your system, or however you want to phrase it. There's a ton of different ways to say it, but prep that homeowner to think that you're doing them an extra service, because you are, by going out. This is a value add by going out to the home. And not only are you going to take the 25 minutes it takes to do a clean and check on the equipment, but you're going to spend a lot of extra time in the house this time and create some information that is going to be super valuable to them. That way, boom, the equipment's not getting changed, but you already know you get like 5 points of value out of doing this. And I'm creating a little white paper out of them, so they're going to be in there. But my opinion, you get 5 points of value out of doing this. One is you have the load calculation in hand into perpetuity. When it comes time to change the system out, you already know definitively what that size is. You can have pre-selected equipment based on their preferences. Like, there's a ton of stuff that you can do to prep them for that call. Two, if you have that information and you are using MeasureQuick, which is another piece of this whole entire conversation, and you benchmark the system performance when it's installed, the next time around, you're going to know that performance is performing to what the load calculation said it should, and B, you're going to be able to talk to them as the system degrades, because that score automatically degrades itself over time based on different factors, including age of the equipment. So you're going to be able to say, hey, we know coming up, Mr. or Mrs. Johnson, you are going to need to replace your system at some point in time. We don't want it to happen on the worst days of the year or when you have company over and your system's working as hard as it can. We want to be able to get this system installed for you ahead of time so that nothing like that happens and you can continue on with your life. We already know your system should be this size. Here's some other things that you could do to the house in the meantime that will make not only the system a little more affordable and a little smaller, but it also is going to make it work a lot better and be able to serve you a lot better than it is right now. By doing that, they get the value of being able to preemptively sell the system. And also, too, you have a whole entire thermal map of the house by doing it. If you use the defaults, then you don't know. You don't have this information. You don't know what the insulation levels are. You don't know exactly what the air leakage is. Like, you don't know a bunch of stuff that you could know by doing just by doing a thorough load, an actual real load calculation instead of using defaults. And then that information, like if they have a comfort issue in one of the rooms of the house that they're trying to address, you kind of know what's going on there. You're going to be able to look at that load and glean a bunch of information once you know what it is that you're actually looking at there. So sorry to unload all that on you, but that's sort of where I want this conversation because I know you're using it and you're thinking the same way. So I sort of want to get your thoughts on are you guys doing any of that way? And B, what do you think about that as a big picture item for the use of the LIDAR software?
That's everything you said totally aligns with everything I'm thinking about on a daily basis. Particularly here in Colorado, I'm not sure how much you know about our lack of winter this year, but it really made us all, company level, all these different companies have to really think outside the box to keep not only our salespeople busy, but also our technicians and our installers. I think we might have had only a couple snow dumps, which is just so unusual, with majority of it being like 50, 60, and we just recently had some 70-degree days. So with that, you're not getting your typical demand calls. So having a customer base like you're describing is critical. Having referrals, maintenance, that is what's going to float you through these times. And so, with me starting at a new company right now, I'm starting at Independent Power with this mindset that totally aligns with what you're saying, where it's a lot of referral business and just doing things to that impact the customer's experience, unlike everybody else's, because as you know, these markets are so saturated with the box replacers out there and the lead to speed. But we're intentionally in the HVAC and home performance niche that we're in. We're intentionally slowing things down, and that's right in line with having a nice maintenance customer base as well. Going out and documenting any changes or, before I get too far down that, I do want to mention a lot of this is stemming from when I went through and got certified through NCI. That really, if you don't measure, you're just guessing, like what you were, kind of echoing what you were saying. That has been stapled into my brain of why the design is so important, because I'm always thinking about ways of like, why is design so important to homeowners in particular? Because that's my main purpose, is to protect homeowners from spending $15,000, $20,000 and the end product is not anywhere close as what they deserve. And I see that so much, especially since COVID times in this area in Colorado, where you just have companies starting up and they're just getting in as fast as they can and swapping things out. And are you familiar with the heat pump revolt discussion? You've heard that?
Nope. Fill me in.
No. So I was listening to a lecture at one of the AHRs, I think it was last year, and they're talking about, some of the experts were talking about how a lot of companies are now, jumping on the heat pump bandwagon, but they are not taking into account the duct constraints in homes. And I am seeing that firsthand, where people are doing block load calculations remotely and they don't have the NCI, or at least the manual D, or any type of experience to prove that what they're going to put in is going to work.
Wait a minute. Go back. You just hang on one second. They're doing block load calculations remotely. Is that what you just said? There
are companies that are.
And what's that? Is it an ACA approved load, or what does that look like? I know there's one company out there that sort of claim, or they do. I know they have an ACA approved methodology that they're using to do some kind of remote stuff. But other than that, I'm interested in hearing what what you're referring to there.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you're right. There is a company in this area that does that. And I've actually used the app. So it's by no means any shade for me. I gave the owner of that company major props after using their app at my own house. But there is still, not only with them, but with everybody, people aren't thinking about, they're not even checking static pressures a lot of the times. And if they are, it's only because they were told they have to check it and put it on a form. They don't really understand why.
So I get, just to clear up what you're saying there, because now I see the whole picture. You're saying the load calculation probably ain't wrong, but there's other pieces to being in the home that facilitate you being able to install that piece of equipment that you need to take measurements on. And yes, 100% I agree with that.
Precisely.
That, especially with the heat pumps, and really I wasn't even thinking that way when I was thinking about the load, the pros and cons of remote load calculations, because I've been thinking a lot about it. I use a version of that sometime. It's much different, but like and I'm actually creating a product where we're going to be selling some remote stuff like that too, a verified permanent load reduction product we're coming out with. But basically, to be able to serve the remote customers, my idea is a little bit different from that. I think that you do need the in-home interaction. So basically, I'm going to offer them to be able to scan their home remotely, fill out a survey, give me as much information as possible, qualify the lead. Then I'm going to have a partner that is in their geographic area that's one of our partner contractors, and I'm going to hand them a qualified lead and say, we need you to go out to the house and complete this sale. It's your sale, but you got to do it our way. And that's basically, that's the way that we're thinking about it, because I do think that there's a lot of law. Like, number one, you need a blower door test. I don't care what any of these guys say. I've heard that company and everybody else's philosophy on why you don't need a blower door test. And to me, it's horseshit. I mean, honestly,
Agreed.
I've done enough blower door tests in my life, like thousands, literally. I'm not even exaggerating that number. And I can tell you that they are different house to house. There can be two houses built exactly the same next door to each other, and everything looks exactly the same, and there's something weird going on in the attic, and that air leakage is totally different, and that's a heat loss. And in your market, it matters more than anything, because like air infiltration is the biggest, the dollar for dollar heat loss. Like, there's nothing else everything else has pointed diminishing returns. Like, air leakage does not. It's the same. However, if you want to put a dollar amount on it proportionally over the amount of leakage in the home, which you could do if you did the math, it's going to be the same penny on every single CFM leaving the house down to from the first one down to the last one. Nothing else thermally works that way. Insulation has a point of diminishing returns. You get big bang for your buck from 0 to R19. You got to go all the way to like almost R30 something before you get that big of a bang of a buck again from that you got from the first 0 to R19. And really 0 to R anything. Like, if you go from 0 to anything thermally from that point on, like you start with R5 or R6 in the wall, then you're going to hit some diminishing returns right away. It's not really going to pay for itself just filling in that much, going from R5 to R13. You'd have to go from R5 to like R30 or something like that to really see a good payback on it. So that all being said, like, those are the easy visual things that you could probably get right in a remote load calculation. But like, the air infiltration, there's only one way that I know of to understand what that is. And it's either a long time ago, Joe Stiebrick said, a blower door is a sales tool. It's not a measurement tool, because a good contractor doesn't need a blower door to go into an attic and look at everything and say, here's every place I need to seal to make this thing work right. Let me figure out how much ventilation I need to do using ASHRAE's calculation. And you would never need a blower door. You would just know you did a good job. Now, I can get behind that a little bit, but I've come behind myself with a blower door, and I've sealed up stuff and I've missed stuff. So I know that and sometimes it's major stuff that I've missed, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? It's taking, what we call blower door assisted air sealing to vet it out and seal and figure it out. So I guess I'm, saying all that on a soapbox, because that's the one piece, like, I really struggle with guys eliminating the air infiltration, because it plays such an important part in the load calculation itself as well. So I don't know if those guys, I don't know for sure that they're not sending people out with blower doors, but it seems like it would fly in the face of their remote philosophy that they use. But I don't know, I don't know enough about what they're doing to say yes or no, but I guess the point is, if they're not doing blower door tests, shame on you. You need to include that. Like, that's the bottom line on that from my perspective. How do you feel about it? I mean, I just said a bunch of shit that would make you feel like you don't want to say an opposite opinion, but
no.
Feel free to tell me I'm full of shit if you think that I'm over exaggerating it.
The thing that I have learned about and that I really respect about HVAC design and engineering in particular, there's objective facts here, and there you just can't you can't argue with physics, and that's what I just always remind myself. So there's no disagreement from me on that either. And it's kind of that same thing that I'm echoing from the beginning of the pod. It's like you don't know what you don't know, and you think you know so much because you're beating the people that aren't doing it. And we're all striving. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. I don't want to make it seem like me or you or anybody that has drinking this Kool-Aid is perfect, but we're always striving to get to protect the homeowner's investment. That's what it all comes down to for me, is they're going to spend the money one way or another. And I feel it's a disservice if I'm not doing those kind of things like blower door tests, and I'm not personally getting up into the attic and seeing what type of insulation is up there. That's now that I know the right way to do it. If I was to not do it that way, I'm going to have to look at myself in the mirror at night. And that's something that I take very seriously. So I completely agree with that, Jeremy, for sure.
Have you seen more educated homeowners like in the age of the internet and the heat pump push and all that stuff? I was talking to a lady yesterday about doing some media stuff, and they're like trying to sell me some media package or something. And she's like, we need to talk about the things that people are talking about. We want to do a segment on HVAC spring cleaning. I'm like, nah, that's not our market. Like, that's something you can leave that to whoever wants to talk about that stuff. I'm like, let's talk about heat pumps. She's like, are you sure the media is going to cover heat pumps? I said, have you looked up heat pumps in the media? Like, everybody's talking about that stuff, So like, there's always a give and take on that stuff.
There is. And yes, to answer your question, I think a lot more homeowners are more educated for a couple of different reasons. And one of the reasons, you probably see the book behind me, but it's Nate Adams, because Nate Adams has that Home Comfort 101 book that I cannot recommend enough, not only to homeowners, which it's actually designed for, an understandable, digestible information, but for people that are selling or working this type of equipment or interested in this equipment, you got to get this book as well. Start listening to anything that he has, because it's all about thinking of and treating the home as a system, thinking of it as a system, the whole home as a system. That was a huge thing for me to be able to understand all this engineering data and all this stuff I'm always looking at, to be able to easily describe it to people. So now they're getting excited about these things that usually people aren't. They're usually not excited to invest money in a heat pump or do anything like that. But if I can bring them in on a lot of the things like LIDAR and thinking of the home as a system, that's one piece of it. And then the second piece, of course, is there are a lot of great electrification contractors in Boulder County and Denver. I would say maybe 10 or so that are strictly dedicated. That might be a little bit more than the reality, but a lot of the educating is coming from us. And yes, we're competitors in this market, but there's also like a kinship where we all have an end mission, which is, saving the planet with heat pumps, of course, reducing our carbon footprint, et cetera. So we're always educating people and passing. I'm in contact with our direct competitors, and we all like to kind of share notes, and it's a lot different than what I'm used to before getting into a decarb company, where it's like cutthroat. The legacy type HVAC model is very cutthroat.
Yeah, it's sell a box. I mean, that's what legacy HVAC is. If you can sell it faster than your neighbor can sell it, and sell it to your neighbor if you can, and sell it to your neighbor's neighbor if you can, but just sell a box. That's how
just
they
sell
look
it.
at it. Yeah. That's really the way all that stuff was. Do you find that the home performance side of stuff? Well, let me ask you this first. I actually had another question that just popped in my head. I forgot. Are you guys in a natural gas market out there, or is it some other different fuel?
It's natural gas.
Is it cheap natural gas? Because like Cincinnati, where I grew up and where I cut my teeth on, 45 years, Cincinnati, Ohio, they had Duke. It was a Duke market, and it's the cheapest natural gas in the country. So even to this day, you're going to pay more for it to run a heat pump. I mean, after 30 degrees, you are. Even the cold weather heat pumps, it doesn't matter. You're not going to compete with Duke's natural gas. Is it that? Mm-hmm. Are you guys in a market like that, or is it a little more expensive? Or
with Colorado, we have so many different utilities. One of the largest ones is Xcel, and they have a lot of great actual rebate programs that help offset. If you are looking at doing a replacement and your only parameter here that you're trying to stay in line with is for it to be the most efficient HVAC system on the market, then we might need to talk about maybe geothermal, but that's a completely different animal. And the return on investment is about 20 years with today's pricing. So we don't really go down that road much.
Right. Yep.
But I sell a ton of dual fuel heat pump systems. That's probably, I would say, my bread and butter per se. And it's for good reason, because with it being a natural gas market and each zip code could have a different utility sometimes. It's relatively cheap. To answer your question, it's relatively cheap gas. So I'm not ever trying to push somebody to think that them replacing furnace with all electric would be by any means the more efficient pathway. We'd be looking at different reasons for them too. And a lot of them, they come with it. They want to decarbonize, especially in like the Boulder County market. In Denver, it's really, really attractive. And there's incredible rebates, Jeremy. It's unbelievable. When I came over here to Independent Power recently, I started looking at some of the proposals and I was like, this is insane. I mean, people are out of pocket paying $2,000 to $5,000 for.
Holy crap.
A fully ducted Mitsubishi hyperheat system, because they have these rebate stacks that are insane. It just doesn't even make sense. Something that's 20 to 25,000. I mean, people are paying like 5% of that. It's crazy. So that's a huge lead generator for us, is all these rebate programs for sure.
What's your dual fuel go-to system? What's your favorite to specify and install dual fuel wise?
Dual fuel for sure, Mitsubishi for me, because I love the opportunity to put a coil down on a ducted system and then be able to take care of a couple bedrooms upstairs with some heads.
Do they have a furnace now, or are you putting it on a train?
I'm putting it on. Furnace? I'm putting it on a furnace. We were selling Ream at the last place I was at, so I was doing a lot of those. Here we're going to be doing Lennox furnaces, as most likely Lennox furnaces, I would imagine. So. But the reason why I love that is because we have so many multi-level homes here, and a lot of homes from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where the heat stack effect is in full force in the summertime. People are just not comfortable. And you and I know, that's not only the HVAC related. Like, of course, we want to seal the lid and the rim joists and insulate, but for some people, they want to do that, but they also want independent control in their main bedrooms or their nursery upstairs as well, not only the insulation. So that is a perfect world. And that's what that's like my main option for multi-level homes, is doing that. I call it a balanced approach, being able to take care of multiple areas in the home, not just with one central ducted. And then, I have done electrification, switching over people to full electrification, but under some strict guidelines. The only way that I'll do that is if I can prove that the duct system can handle it. And in Colorado, majority of them can't. I'd say 8 out of 10 can't, because they're designed for gas heating. Just 20 years ago, they were installing homes without air conditioning still, and some homes because the summer months weren't very hot. But now the summers are getting hot and the winters are kind of evaporating, at least this year. So we have a big problem of ductwork, and they're covered behind drywall. So people don't want to demo all the drywall and do an entire duct renovation. So we have to think creatively. And that's been one of the best ways for me to be able to take care of more people. And then you stack all these rebates on top. I mean, most of the time people they're not even going to be exceeding $10,000 and have the best HVAC system that probably on their block.
Are you having any, like I design with Mitsubishi quite a bit, and I started using their coils for a while, but I started having trouble with static pressure. Like they have a high pressure drop for those coils because of how tall they are and how big they are. And the way they fit on the furnace sometimes is weird too. Like you need a ton of headroom with them a lot of times. Have you had any issues overcoming the static pressure drop on those things when you're designing, or do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, so I haven't had issues with the static pressure myself, and I haven't been reported back from any of the installers or techs that was an issue. I know there has been an issue with some of the communicating side of it, where they had some issues with the sensors when they rolled out the 454B units. There was just a really big growing pain. So I was selling Mitsubishi for 410A models and everything was smooth. And then the new refrigerant models came out, and it was a challenge for a little while. with the static pressure, there's a couple things that I'm doing as a non-negotiable with every single job if I can fit it, and that's of course putting it on an air box, a media cabinet, and then also turning vanes or reliefs, and then also upsizing the return drop. And just doing that alone might be why I haven't had reported issues with the drop over the coil, or maybe they just haven't told me. I'm not sure.
I was having trouble getting it to pencil. That was my problem. I don't know what's going on in the field. I haven't had any testing out in the field, but I was having trouble getting it to pencil. I had to go to a different coil a bunch of times because I couldn't even for what I was designing, and because of how big the duct system was, or how much equivalent length or whatever was going on that was causing me to have higher static in the duct system. When I put the coil in there with it, it would be like 0.19. I forget, like somewhere like 0.26, depending on the airflow. You got some high pressure drops coming across that thing. So I was having trouble really literally getting it to even work in my design a lot of times. So I had to look a different direction I was a few times. They might have changed. I mean, this is the first year they came out with it, and I forget when that was. It's been probably 5 years now. So I probably haven't looked their way for that particular coil in a couple of years now. So they might have did something different with it where it's working a little bit better, have different literature published or something like that.
They must have, yeah, because I'm sure I would know about that problem in our market with me being NCI and just understanding the importance of it all. Yeah. Now that we've talked about that, I'm actually going to look into it, and I'm going to pull. Are you finding that on DSB, the Diamond System Builder, as a choke point?
The last time I looked at it, I think we got the information off of my link drive, but DSB should have it too. Like if you put together a system on DSB, I think you should be able to get that off of there too. Yep.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a message after the pod once I get through that. I'm going to see if I can replicate that.
Yeah. See what it says about the pressure drops. I'm interested to hear that. We'll do a follow up on it.
Right on
a different episode for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, so now here's where I want to go. Stoic, thermal stoic. Tell me the story of that. Where did that come from? What's it mean to you? Tell me the least stoic thing you see in HVAC.
Oh man. Okay. So it's been a few years, and it's kind of I don't know if necessarily think it's my finished product of what I've been working on, but it's a really cool kind of alter ego for me. It's just a combination of everything I've been working on, and that's important to me. So it all started out back in about 2017. I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I was looking to I love to read and listen to audiobooks all the time. If I'm not learning, I'm just like, I feel stagnant, and it's just me as well, Jeremy. I also have ADHD, and it's a superpower, but I've also been learning how to manage it and use it as my own superpower.
You got to, man. I'm an advocate of that, bro. Like I put systems on top of systems in place for myself. Like I know myself very well at this point when it comes to that stuff, and I've taught myself how to harness it, because like if you don't, it controls you and you just get nothing accomplished. Like you got to do something about it. If you're not going to get on medicine, which I'm not a medicine guy, like you got to do something else, Yeah,
no doubt. Just in the spirit of staying on the track, which is probably going to be hard for us anytime we talk, but I started out with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then I was looking for, recommended readings, got into Miyamoto Musashi, and it was kind of like, the Japanese Stoicism of the time. He was a swordsman, and he went around and challenged people to duels, and he has some great books and his philosophy on life. And then it just naturally went over into Marcus Aurelius. And then I read Meditations, which is actually this book on my shelf right here. Read that many years back, but I always bring it back once a year, and I read through it, kind of like Band of Brothers for me, the HBO series on World War II. I watched that about once a year, and same with Meditations. And so that has been a great way for me to kind of just slow down and think before I react to things. And so with coming from that mindset, I just have applied that to my professional life and all different aspects where, anything that's happening to me that day, majority of it's out of my control, and being able to stop and recognize it when things come in it's a practice in itself. And I'm not perfect, but at least it's guidelines or guardrails for me to not go off the deep end and suffer with my mental health. And so Stoicism for me has been it's just been a way for me to cope with the reality of life that we all live in. And so I took those principles into trying to understand more complex topics like building science and thermodynamics, because in school, I don't know for you, but I could not pay attention in school. I had a tough time
Had to be
learning.
something I really loved. If I wasn't interested in it, and then I just hit no, it didn't work out for me.
Just did not work out. Same here. Things just were not interesting to me. I think because more I wanted to fit in growing up. So I just was like, my attention was into other spots. But now that I'm able to harness, my superpowers per se, I've been teaching myself how to learn better. And the ways that I do that with the help of AI, of course, particularly Notebook LM, you can put data in there and it will podcast educational info for you to help you learn. I mean, I feel like I got way smarter overnight because of that.
I know. I was just telling my Karina, who's actually on this call, she's the quote unquote producer of it right now, but she is my assistant as well. And I was telling her the other day, I'm like, have you tried Notebook LM? She hadn't heard of it yet. I'm like,
game changer.
It's like, yeah, dude, if you want an assistant, boy, that is it right there for like building, slide decks or whatever it is you're doing. You dump in your thoughts, just and it's gonna sort them all into something usable pretty quick. I was impressed. I mean, I'm a power chat GPT user, but that thing blew my mind, dude. Because it's so specific to what it does, it just works really well.
Exactly. And then I learned how to create a better prompts, which then helped me learn even more complex, at least thinking about how I can learn better. And it always came back to, these audio overviews that it can create for me, and then quizzing me along the way as I'm learning. So I was doing that with building science, reading Nate Adams' book, reading manual J, manual D, manual S, reading all of that stuff, then having it, put into my ear pods. And I'm just listening to that all the time, just fully inundated to learn all of that stuff. So I got totally obsessed with all of that. Still am, but so the thermal stoicism was actually thermal stoicism was actually one of my training for myself. I want to be able to train and learn these topics so then I can teach other people and develop designer apprentices or future designers. I want to develop the people that are in traditional sales roles in HVAC or even techs with this mindset of building science and HVAC high performance. So for me, when I'm able to teach things, because I'm also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, if I can teach people things, I'm able to understand on an extremely deep level. And that's actually, I heard recently Benjamin Franklin is part of one of his core tenets when because he's like us. He wasn't some genius that we all think he was originally. He understood how to learn and how to just had his own methodology. And so that's how it all just kind of came together. That's the timeline. And I currently do have a podcast called The Balance Podcast, where I have just, different stages of the last year, things I'm interested in and just things I want to talk about. So it's a self-growth and self-improvement podcast. And for me, I'm obsessed with HVAC design and building science. So I like to weave in, for instance, the first episode's called Insulate Your Mind. And I talk about, the importance of air sealing, insulating, and also the importance of understanding that when someone does something negative to you or life does something negative to you, it's all about how you respond to it. You can't control the uncontrollable. And then I weave the two in that first episode. And it's just a 10-minute bite size, but it's just, I'm going to have about 7 episodes. I already have most of them recorded, just in the editing phase and then releasing. So
that is interesting take on things. Especially, so just let me back up to, I was just processing what you're saying, where you're saying it. So you're making the analogy of insulate your mind. You're saying not only do you need to insulate the house and protect the heat from leaving or escaping, but you need to insulate your mind so that what you're thinking doesn't escape and what your stupid stuff don't come in, basically, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying, more or less?
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool analogy. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really a passion project, and I just saw value. I was like, there might be people out there that want to learn this way as well. So let me just put this out and see, if the people that it's designed for, no pun intended, if that they find it. So, funny enough, I've said Nate Adams about 10 times already, but he found that pod and he gave me kudos on it, and he can't wait to listen to more. So if I got him liking it, I think I'm doing something right.
You're doing something right. That's 100%. I'll check it out for sure. I didn't even know it existed till you said it, but I'll let you. Well, actually, we're coming up on time now here. So let me just do two things. One, this is my parting shots with every guest that we have on. If the world went in LA tomorrow and somebody was like, we're going to rebuild the world at some point in time, write your best piece of advice on the wall over there. What's your advice that you leave for the world?
Okay. I would say be intentional with everything you do in life, especially who you choose to be in the same rooms with.
Man, that's super powerful. I like that a lot. Thank you very much for that. That is some of the best advice ever, because the people you're in the room with are going to decide what you do for the next 5 years of your life. That is a fact. So you have to understand that as a person. That is very powerful. Thank you for that. Thank you for being a guest. Thanks for coming on. This has been an awesome conversation. Before we go, tell everybody where they can find your podcast at and where they can find you at. Anything you want to tell everybody, let them know.
Yeah. So again, I'm Cameron Ferguson. You can find me on Instagram at Cameron Ferg. You can also find me on Spotify and Apple Podcast at The Balanced Podcast. The Thermal Stoic is a series of podcast episodes I'm going to be doing. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well, Cameron Ferguson. I look forward to chatting with you all, and please follow me for more.
Thank you very much, Cameron. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.